Hey everyone, Genome here, coming to you on my next Marvel Strike Force video. In today's video, I want to talk about some characters that are a little too difficult to obtain for newer players nowadays, and I'm going to give some reasoning of why I think they should be moved. I'm going to kind of go real briefly over where I want them moved to, and then you two can actually, mileage may vary, but you can tell me what you think about the ideas. Before I get started, though, I want to send a special thank you to Run7. He also has a MSF channel. Be sure to give him a like and subscribe, by the way. His link will be in the description below. But he sent me my official NONvoy t-shirt today. So I'm very happy to get this and wear it with great pride. So being the nondescript NONvoy that I am. So yeah, thanks again, man. And be sure to check out his channel. Okay, so there are some issues with Marvel Strike Force I want to talk about. And a lot of it has to do with how hard it is to obtain some characters that either unlock someone who's very important, or they themselves are still at least somewhat barely relevant, right, in the game. And I want to talk about those characters. I'm gonna pick 3 actually that are currently on nodes. They're farmable, but really, honestly, 2 of them are in the Doom campaign, and one of them is at the end of the Nexus, and it's really difficult for newer players to get to these characters, and by the time they do, these guys will be completely faded. And in the case of 2 of them, actually both of them that are in Doom, the legendaries that they're used to unlock will be phased out completely. So, or not completely, but for the most part, for all intents and purposes. So let's go ahead and just get into it. So my first choice for today's show is Thanos. Yes, Thanos is farmable. I can't remember if you have to be level 70 to get to the end of the Nexus campaign. It's been a long time, but you have to be up there pretty far. And the end of the Nexus introduced us to some nonsense where you had to have specialized teams. I personally think these older, like Doom campaigns, now that they've been beaten for like a year or whatever, with specific teams, to just be opened up for any teams at this point, so everyone can get in there and not have to level up crap teams, but more on that later, or at least another video. But Thanos still has some use. I know he is not real popular with the high-end players, but for the mid-game or late game players, he still has a ton of raid use. He has some tie-ins with Black Order. If you have other Black Order unlocked, I don't recommend going for them anymore, but he's the integral part of that team. But I think he's just great as a standalone guy. I still use him every day in raids at my lower peasant level of rating, so very valuable. But the problem is you have to wait so long to get him, and you have to level up either Shield, Brotherhood, or X-Men, and of those, really none of those teams is great for node farming. Shield is definitely the best, but that's not a team you really want to be working on either, so it just takes too long to get to him. And then when you do get to him, he's a 100 shard unlock too, so either I like to see him knock down like a 45 shard unlock, or 55 at most, 3-star, or yeah, you know what I mean. But just lower his requirements some. But really, his node, move him to an earlier node, or take these requirements at the very least of Shield, Brotherhood, X-Men out. He's not a game changer anymore for the most part, so I don't see the reason to keep him gated so far. Move him earlier in the campaign. Throw him in the Mystic campaign. I guess it makes sense there, or the Cosmic on one of the lower nodes. It's easier to get to. So let's talk about my next 2, and they're both in Doom campaigns, and I'm sure everyone knows where I'm going to go with these, but let's just go ahead and do it in order. So, Negasonic. Okay, I use her nowhere. Absolutely nowhere, except for on the occasional war attack, and I don't really have my X-Force built up, so I use her absolutely nowhere. I don't find her a useful character regardless, even if I did have her built up. Just from her kit alone, but she is used to unlock Doc Ock, and she's probably the highest gated member to do that, because you'll probably be doing some wars before that, and maybe getting X-23, more on that later. So yeah, I don't think it makes any sense anymore to keep her so far away for the newer player if they want to, because a lot of newer players are going to be working on Sinister 6, which I also don't recommend to do anymore like you used to, because it unlocks 2 legendaries. But if you do work on Sinister 6, they are absolute garbage, and they always have been, unless they have Doc Ock. Once they get Doc Ock, you can do some things with them. But as it stands, Doc Ock is so far away from the new player experience that he's basically unattainable. And, every day he's slipping further and further behind the meta. So, I mean, he's still good, don't get me wrong. He's a really good legendary, but I think it just takes too long to get them. I think they should just move her to her earlier node somewhere. Doesn't matter where, in the heroes, villains, wherever. I don't care. I say just put her on an earlier node and put something else in here. Maybe, oh no, T14 stuff. I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole nother video. So Negasonic is my number 2 pick for moving to an earlier node if possible. And finally, I think this one's going to surprise nobody. It's going to be Yellow Jacket. The fact that he is so far up the Doom campaign makes it almost impossible for any first or maybe even second year player to even think about getting if they're not spending money, right? If you spend money, you can blow through a lot of the bottlenecks that are in this game. It doesn't really count. So for the rest of us mortal players out there, he is a very tough nut to crack. Not to mention the teams you got to build to get up to him. It's going to put you so far behind. And all that so you can unlock Jubilee. That's the only thing that BIMTech is used for. There's no one else useful on the BIMTech team. Ghost, more on that later probably. But the fact that he has been here this long and he's making it so difficult to flesh out the rest of the team, which is useless basically without Jubilee, it just boggles my mind. X-Men have been around for a while now. They're not meta breaking. It's time to move this guy to an earlier node. You can stick him in the Nexus or somewhere, or maybe Cosmic or Mystic or somewhere, a little bit further up the chain if you're worried about introducing him too early. But, as a character standalone, he's not good. So he's not going to break your early game experience for anything. Other tunes do that much more. Kestrel. But move him. Make it easier to pick up the Axemen. That way you can start working on them earlier for your future rating. Because as it is, by the time that a lot of new players, if you're just coming into the game recently in the last 6 months or so, you are so far away from unlocking this node that by the time you do, Axemen are probably going to be useless at that point in raids. Who knows? Maybe they'll still have some use in the Doom raids, whatever, but just being a little hyperbolic there. But move him earlier. I think this is probably the one that most people want moved the most. It could be any of these really, but yeah, move him to an earlier one. Don't gate these people or these characters on fast diminishing either characters or teams so far out of the new player experience. Let him unlock him early, let him get some use out of him, and then let him move on. So the next thing I want to see addressed are characters in the War Store. Now this is not a War Store rant video. It's overcrowded, it's flooded too much. Honestly, my credits are so scarce in that mode, I don't mind waiting a couple days in between, but there's a lot of garbage characters. But I'm not even talking about garbage characters or the bloating of the War Store. Those are genuine concerns. I'm talking about getting characters out of there that the newer players can farm much easier. I'm the consideration of almost everybody on the screen either being moved over to the raid store, or even better, some of these characters go to the Blitz store, so you have something to use those credits on. Because a lot of these characters will have some use for the early to mid-game player, or they do unlock something valuable. Just in this case, there's technically 3, but 2 characters on this list that unlock legendaries, right? You got Ghost, who's War Store only farmable right now, and X23. Of the 2, obviously Ghost is a lot better because you'll get some Dark Dimension use out of her and some limited maybe war attacks or RTA use out of her. She's, decent. Not great, but decent. X23, I use her nowhere. Good kit, but she just lacks too much. I don't use her. I use her more on my baby account. Way more than I use her here. I don't use her anywhere. As you can see, I haven't even bothered upgrading the last star on her because I don't use her. X-Forces gets used maybe once a week on a war attack, and that's it. But you need her for Doc Ock. So she is gated in the War Store. But neither of these characters or the legendary that is associated with them is no longer at the top of the meta. So I don't see a real reason to gate these very borderline characters in the War Store anymore. Move them out. And that kind of goes for everybody here. Let's just go in this real quick. Carnage is an integral piece of his team and an awful standalone character, so he's not going to break the new player experience. Symbiote Spider-Man and Alien Venom are still not really farmable anywhere, and I don't care what they say. I'm not going to use that stupid word they like to use for orb farming, but yeah, that team doesn't work too well without him, at least in raiding, and there's no sense. He's already got 2 bottlenecks for that team. I don't think there's any reason to keep Carnage bottlenecked at all. Move him out, right? Minn-erva, She was the queen of Dark Dimension for a long time. She still has some fringe use in some places. Not really in raids anymore, but you can use her in lower raids. In fact, she's one of the best. She is the best raid healer, in my opinion, just on the strength of her passive. And but I don't see a reason to lock her, in the War Store anymore. She's not a meta character, and I think you should just get her moved on elsewhere. Call, a vital member of, top 3 vital members of Black Order. But what's Black Order anymore? It's a strong team, but no one is recommending you build them anymore from scratch. If you're just starting out, that's kind of it's nothing you need to worry about, because they don't really unlock anything. They don't dominate anything anymore. They're really good in a lot of places, but they're getting outclassed like monthly now with releases. So Call, get them out of there. Let new players farm up at least a decent tank, right? And just kind of put them next to Thanos. There you go. There's a nice little farm for you. But, just something. Hopefully no one's spending war credits on these guys, aren't this guy anymore. So, yeah, move them out. Pyro. Pyro is I used to say integral piece of Brotherhood 2.0, but even now, he's the one that probably gets dropped the most on his own team, but he's still good on the team. Don't get me wrong, he's super squishy, and his damage is no longer up to par, but I don't see any reason at all that he's in the War Store. He is a very mediocre character. Also, see my video, maybe I'll put something up here, on how to fix him I did recently. Get him out, man. Make it easier to farm up characters for the Brotherhood, too. Overall, you do have Toad Blob, which are really easy to get, right? So, Sabretooth, that's another one, and she'd probably get out of the raid store, but whatever. Get Pyro out. He's not good a character. His team is 2.5 years past meta. Make it easier for him to be farmed. Graviton, I have the sneaking suspicion that he'll be used for something in the future. Don't quote me, I don't know for sure. But I had the feeling that, everyone's like MODOK, whatever, the case may be with AIM. If AIM gets a resurgence, or if they're used to unlock a legendary, he'll have some further use. I do think he is actually a decent character. If he was stronger, I actually thought about maybe running him along with Cloak and Dagger and Deathpool, since he has a lot of synergies. I did that in a video a little while back. I talked about it, but Graviton is basically a mini legendary on his AIM team. AIM team is going to be very necessary for like the Heroes campaigns and Dooms or whatever. In the end of the Heroes campaigns. Those last ones, I think the first 3 are either AIM, Hydra, and somebody else, and AIM's the easiest one to use. So, but don't run AIM without Graviton. Same as you don't run it without Science Supreme. But there's no reason for him to be here. His team is not meta-breaking or game-breaking in any shape, way, or form, and he's not going to make it much better for the new player experience. They might not even try to farm him, but the case may be they shouldn't have to spend war credits on a character like this if he can be just farmed elsewhere. So anyway, that was it. Just wanted to go over a couple things on some characters I think need to be moved, because a lot of times the new player experience is not taken into consideration with a lot of these moves, and none of the choices I made today would break the game whatsoever, even if they could farm them in the very first hero nodes. It's not going to change much. But it could spin my new player experience some, and would help them save some resources, because they're going to have to burn so many coming up. I don't think people who've been playing this game a long time realize how much resources you have to burn on garbage teams and characters just to get a chance to unlock the path to some of these ones I lined out earlier today. All that for rewards, which are just depreciating rapidly. So anyway, let me know what you think about these choices below. Do you have any that you would add? And once again, thanks again for Run7 for the great t-shirt. And until next time, this is Genome, just fixing the new player experience one node and or store at a time. Out.